WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American over here in Germany, often tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. What do I have here? I have a Edradour Highland Single Malt Scotch Whisky, cask strength, single cask for Germany exclusive, with 60.7% ABV, a 9-year-old full maturation in Bordeaux Barrique cask. All right, so cask number 339, number of bottles 285. This bottle is retailing at the moment in Germany for 79 euros and 90 cents. So we're going to pour this and then we're going to compare it. Guess what we're going to compare it to? We are going to compare it to, hold your horses. Look, it's the same. No, it's different. There's a little bit of a gold stripe here. This is the 21-year-old Edradour. This is 2 hogsheads, 801 and 802 with 55.7% ABV. So this is Whiskybase number. I don't think I even gave the Whiskybase number for the other one. This is 201762 and this is 222789. All right, so what we have here is an 8-year finish in Primeur Grand Cru Bordeaux hogsheads, which I find weird. Why is it a hogshead? Why is it not a Bordeaux Barrique? But that's just me. All right, so this costs 279 euros. So 200 euros more. This is 9. This has 8 years of maturation in those Bordeaux casks. Now, it does have an additional 13 years in ex-bourbon casks. I'm not even sure they were bourbon. They were oak casks. They were used maybe twice, 3 times, 4 times. Don't forget that in the year 1999, when this was distilled, there were Sigmaton, the owner here from Signature Vintage, did not own the distillery. This was still owned by Chivas Regal. All right, so Pernod Ricard, if you like. And they're not famous for their cask policies, especially back then in 1999. All right, so now, if you look at the colors, they are fairly similar. This has a little bit more of a pinkish type of peach tone. This has a tiny little bit of a orange type of tan brown tone. We have over here 60.7. We have here 55.7. 79.90 to 79.90. 21 years, only 8 years in Grand Cru, 9 years. Full maturation. All right, so the good thing is that we actually have a nice little story in the back of this bottle, so we know when they re-racked it. The bad thing is we have no information whatsoever here, any place except for the date of distillation, the date of the bottle filling, the cask number, and the number of bottles, which should be more than enough information for any geek out there, to be honest. All right, so on the nose, I don't get the 60.7%. I do get a little bit of a sulfur moment. Now, what do? You have, in Bordeaux, France, you have a wine cask. Wine, 14% ABV. All right, so you empty it and you send it to Scotland. Now, if it's in, for example, the summertime and it's 30 degrees, which is going to be in the high 80s, maybe 90 degrees, that cask could actually tip. It could turn into a vinegar type of moment. And we don't want that to happen. So what do they do at the vineyards? The very first thing, they put this sulfur candle down into that. You create some type of sulfur oxide. It displaces the oxygen in the cask. You put the bung back on there and you send that cask over Scotland with no real possibility of that cask turning bad. Now, the only problem is the wood absorbs some of that sulfur oxide and other sulfur components, and then when it's refilled with whiskey, for example, it passes those components back into the whiskey. whiskey does almost anything it can to get rid of those sulfur components. Why do we use copper? To remove sulfur. And then what do we do if we use a red wine cask that has been sulfured? We put it back in there. I don't get that. I really, really don't. All right, so I would be using refrigerated containers. I would be doing other things. Now, this is a tried and true method for wine. Wine has sulfates in it. You can hardly find a bottle in the world that does not say this wine contains sulfates. So if you use a wine barrel and you put new wine in there, no problem. We're used to it in wine. Wine covers that up. What I'm not used to is in my whiskey tasting that sulfate moment. And that's what I get here in the nose. By the way, I get this here too. Now, some people are oblivious to sulfates. Some people are very sensitive to them. And if we had a scale of people not able to smell it and people who are literally allergic to it, I'm here. I'm closer to being allergic to it than anything else. All right, so I'm sensitive to sulfates. All right, which is bad because other people enjoy whiskeys. We actually have an independent bottler over here in Germany. He is absolutely blind to any type of sulfur moment. Think you're camping and you have the matches and you actually strike that match, and that moment of that sulfur oxide compounds. And so he imports from Spain and from other places these casks that are heavily sulfur. And even if I go, I'm at a whiskey fair, I'm within a couple meters of his booth, it's like, okay, no. I love the guy, but no. And he's like, what's going on, Jason? I said, can't you smell it? He said, no, I can. I said, well, I sure can. And so he's famous for that in Germany and there are many people that don't like it. And other people actually consider it a positive note. For me, it's absolutely it's wrong. It doesn't belong in my whiskey. All right. So that's enough of the X-cores. What is then sulfur oxide? What is then, how do casks are prepared and so on? And why does this whiskey not appeal to my senses as much as it could? Even when I taste it, my tongue starts actually like, there's a little bit of a needle moment because of that sulfur moment that I was like, ooh, think fireworks, that type of moment. All right, so this is a 9-year-old full maturation, 60.5%. I'll just try it. Now, interesting enough, there is heat, but it's not that heat that really bothers me. It has that red wine moment. I love a good dry Bordeaux with my beef roast. I love a heavy Bordeaux with Sunday dinner. I'm getting that dark red berries. Think almost like a cranberry type of moment. A little bit of tartness is in there. Think a little bit of a blackberry type of moment. For those that are not sensitive at all to to sulfur, this is going to be a very nice whiskey in my personal opinion. There's not much sweetness in here. And the alcohol is actually fairly well integrated in the whole thing. Surprisingly good. This is a solid C for me. If I had no sulfur, whatever, it'd be up in the B- range. But it pulls down because of the needles on my tongue and that, ooh, there's a little bit of sulfur moment in there, which is for me wrong. Now, you would think that the 21-year-old with 55.7% is going to be a little bit smoother. It's not. Now, the problem is And I'm going to try to give an example of this, all right? Imagine you went out to a fast food restaurant, you ate a double, triple cheeseburger, you got the big portion of the fries with ketchup. At the end, you had a sundae or a milkshake or whatever. And then you said, oh, okay, I need to do something good now. I'm going to eat an apple. And the apple does not outweigh all the bad you did to your body with what you just ate. Now, I'm going to say with the casks we choose for our whiskey, it's the same. So this whiskey spent 13 years, and I'm going to consider them old, tired, bad casks. And this was made not by Signature Vintage, but it was made by Pernod Ricard Chevesweigel. So they chose the cask. He inherited those, and he had to do something with them. And so he re-racked them into Grand Cru, premium Grand Cru, Bordeaux barriques hogsheads, which is fine. Now, those 13 years cannot be, and that's the point I'm trying to make, cannot be undone by 8 further years of maturation in very good casks. That beginning is something that remains part of the DNA of this whiskey. And that's why this whiskey is, 1, hotter than this, even though it's much, much older. And 2, there's a little bit of a note, a bitter note in there that just doesn't belong. And it comes from these old tired casks at the beginning. Cheers. And here, there's a little bit of a hot moment from the tongue all the way down here. A little bit of that alcohol, Kentucky hug, that burn that I don't hear at all. I don't have here at all. This is much, much better. It's much better, much professionally distilled. Here, I think, I'm going to use words from Ralphie. Ralphie keeps on talking about they were running the stills hot. Yeah, they were putting out spirit. They weren't really boiling, distilling at a slower pace, but rather as much as possible. And I really have the feeling that those casks, that the pot stills used here were running hot. Here they were running exactly like they should have been. You have a wonderful, wonderful spirit after just 9 years. And this is 21, and it still has a hotness in there that it doesn't belong in comparison. And there's that old soggy wood moment in the background. Now, if I were you and I had the money to burn and the money to spend, I would still buy this one instead. Now, to be very honest, I'm not the Bordeaux lover, as you have found out here. I wouldn't buy either of these. I would, if I had this money, I'd go out and buy a Edradour 21-year-old sherry cask. Oh, I think it was 339 or something like that. One of my whiskeys of the year, basically last year. It was so good. No, it wasn't. It was second place, but still, it was so good. It was beaten by a 27-year-old Glendronach. I mean, sorry, I was spoiled for choice last year. But I would not buy the 279. I would actually buy the 79 euro. Now, this is, as I said, a C. This is a C- whiskey. This is a D- for value for money. And this is actually a D+ for value for money. I think 80 euros for a 9-year-old single cask is still a little bit of a push. Well, this was actually just released here in Germany. Also, a funny fact. It says here, oh, I can read on the screen much better. I'm so sorry. It was distilled on the 18th of July, 2012, but yet it was bottled on the 29th of September, wait for it, 2021. But it was released in Germany on the 3rd of December, 2022. Somewhere this bottling has sat around for a year and 2 months. It was in the bottle since September 2021. And somehow it just made it to Germany. It is a German exclusive. It is for Kirsch import. It's Germany only. And so these 285 bottles, apparently, I'm going to use the word was forgotten, were not delivered, were tabled or shelved for over a year before they finally made it here. So I, as a consumer, would have been like, hey, imagine if you're going to sell it in December of 2022 anyways, why not just bottle it in September of 2022 and have an extra entire year in the cask instead of an extra year in the bottle? Beggars cannot be choosers. Now, question of the day. Both of these are Bordeaux Cask. Full maturation, 8 years, second maturation. What other good bottles do you know of that have a Bordeaux red wine cask finish or full maturation that you can recommend? Edradour is doing interesting good things. I thoroughly enjoy this. I will be reviewing after this their Mazala single cask for Germany. I'll be reviewing and comparing them with the bourbon cask for single cask for Germany. I think it's fabulous what we have here on choice. We are spoiled for choice. But Bordeaux and I are not the biggest of fans. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for liking, subscribing, sharing, telling others about this crazy guy over in Germany that, look what I can do. I can just pull a 21-year-old, compare it to a 9-year-old, and talk about why Bordeaux casks are the way they are. So Ralphie has taught me a lot, and I've learned a lot in the last 6 years of reviews here. All right, thank you. See you soon. Whiskey Jason. Bye-bye.